Introduction. What is leadership? A dictionary definition of leadership describes it as the action or process of leading or influencing an individual or individuals to achieve a goal. At its core, leadership is a relationship between one or more persons who provide guidance, direction, and structure for one or more individuals in working to achieve established goals and objectives. Leadership is not static. It can shift from one person to another and can be shared between two or more individuals. Sometimes in more flexible organizations and teams, the situation dictates who will serve as the leader. If a situation calls for a highly technical approach, the techie may become the leader. If the situation has environmental challenges, the team member who has environmental expertise can serve as the leader. Some leaders are given their roles because they have natural leadership abilities. Some leaders are born into their positions or they inherit them. Still other leaders work to learn and demonstrate the necessary skills to be able to lead their followers successfully and effectively. Larger organizations are not always well suited to be able to make organizational level changes. Their mere size make it difficult for them to interact changes, particularly if they are system wide. Smaller organizations or even teams within an organization can make better leadership changes and adaptations. Fewer organizational layers make for an atmosphere of adaptability. Leaders should always behave ethically, morally, and responsibly, yet all don't. There have been countless examples of both good and bad leadership throughout time. Good leaders are effective at how they execute the duties of their position and treat the individuals in their organizations as well as their stakeholders with care and concern. Leadership is not a new concept. It's been around for millennia, and it continues to change and evolve and meet the needs of current climate and culture. In the past, the responsibility of leadership has been almost entirely in the domain of the leader. However, in recent decades, there's been a needed recognition of the role that followers play in the leadership dynamic. After all, without followers, a leader can't lead. Successful leaders create a hospitable environment in which followers are comfortable and have the freedom not only to meet the organization's established goals, but to achieve their own compatible goals as well. To create such an environment, leaders serve their followers, elevating their followers' needs above their own. This atmosphere of service creates an organizational culture highly sought after by potential employers and rated highly by individuals in the organization. The result is an organization where everyone succeeds, both leaders and followers. What does it mean to lead by serving? Servant leadership comes from Robert Greenleaf's 1970 landmark work, The Servant as Leader. Greenleaf told the story of a group of travelers that included Leo, the person who served the group. Leo may have been the servant, but his powerful presence led and influenced the group. Leo was valued as leader because of his servant's heart and the fact that he never lost sight of being of service to his fellow travelers. This is the essence of servant leadership, leading by serving one's people. Effective leading by serving is by a leader who was first a servant. In fact, some servant leaders are never officially given the title of leader. Instead, servant leaders serve their followers in whatever role or position they currently occupy. Their servitude, concern, and ultimately their influence are what define them as leader. In fact, Greenleaf believed a person should have an opportunity to serve first, before ever being assigned the role of leader. Followers should require this of their leaders and refuse to follow any leader that had not first been a servant. Every leader should first be a servant. Monarchs in England, Gandhi, etc. But for those who may not have had this initial opportunity, it's still possible to be an effective servant leader. Followers of a leader who has a true servant's heart can detect their leader's authenticity and how much their leader cares for them. Within this atmosphere, followers are willing to support their leader and go where he or she leads them. There's truth to the saying, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Leading by serving challenges the traditional interpretation of what it means to lead. And servant leadership is not always taken seriously as a legitimate method because its terms, servant and leadership, seem contradictory. Yet a growing number of leaders can be pointed to as servant leaders, and a growing number of would-be leaders are finding validity in this leadership method. Those who lead by serving have found an authenticity among their followers due to their earnest desire to elevate their followers by serving them. What are the benefits to leading by serving? The practice of leading by serving has been gaining traction in recent years and for a good reason. Leading by serving is a powerful leadership philosophy that diverges from traditional leadership philosophies. There are many benefits to this innovative approach to leading by serving, such as collaboration and trust. If followers had reservations about the leader prior to seeing the leader's willingness to roll up their sleeves and to do the work being asked of them, they tend to lose their reservations when this happens. One benefit of leading by serving is a strong sense of purpose and a vision for the organization. When a leader decides to lead by serving, they are working alongside and thus have the opportunity to view the organization from the perspective of the members of the organization. If the leader did not assume a posture of service and was not willing to do menial work, the leader would not have been able to view the organization from a different vantage point. This new perspective enables the leader to provide more comprehensive leadership for the organization. Another benefit is improved listening skills. If a leader is working alongside the members of the group, they can focus more on working and listening than on speaking and commanding. In this setting, the leader can really listen to their followers. Improved listening leads to increased empathy. It is impossible to engage in increased and active listening and not develop a greater sense of empathy for those being listened to. One benefit is that followers feel respected, appreciated, and valued by their leader. There's a sense of recognition for the work they do from their leader, which enables them to feel valued and appreciated and respected. A second benefit to members is the encouragement to be innovative and share their own ideas. If the leader is not directly involved with leading and managing, but is instead working alongside the members in the group, there is freedom for the members of the group to create new ways of performing tasks and duties. This also contributes to a follower's sense of being respected and valued for their contribution to the organization. The customer is the ultimate beneficiary of the leading by serving model. Because of the value being given to the followers by the leader and the respect felt by the followers, these and other factors contribute to a better end product for the customer, which is the product, service, or experience. When a leader demonstrates care through service to their followers, and their followers benefit from the care and service, customers also benefit. What does it mean to lead by the example, and what are the benefits? Leaders who lead by serving are, by default, leading by example. Leaders who serve demonstrate behavior that serves as an example for their followers to emulate. By serving their followers, leaders demonstrate that they value their team, which inspires trust, respect, and loyalty from their followers. Leaders who serve provide inspiration and motivation for their people to be highly engaged in their work process and in the production of their final or end product. Leaders who serve also provide encouragement to their followers to be more engaged in the organization. One of the benefits experienced in leading by example is that there is a higher level of trust between the leader who serves their followers and their followers. Studies show that when a leader is able to engage with their followers to the extent that a solid relationship of trust is established, it provides a type of environment that is ideal for fostering trust between the leader and the follower. When a leader, through their service, makes clear that they trust their followers in turn are able to develop trust in the leader. This type of mutual trust is beneficial for the entire organization. Another benefit of leading by example is a positive work environment in which collaboration and innovation can occur organically. When a leader, through service, provides the type of guidance that is exemplary, followers have a sense of freedom to perform their best work and engage in collaborative and innovative work. Employees who are able to work in this type of environment experience a boost in both job satisfaction and productivity. A third benefit of leading by example is that employees have increased support and professional development. When a leader who serves is viewed as setting a positive example for the organization, this leader is typically able to see the ways in which even outstanding, highly skilled employees could benefit. By working alongside of followers to achieve organizational goals, leaders can witness firsthand the areas in which employees could benefit from additional support. Thus, the leader is able to chart a course for employees' professional development, training, or coursework. Leading by example is also beneficial for the organization in that it provides sustainable growth and success not only for the organization, but for stakeholders as well. When a leader's exemplary behavior permeates the entire organization, the organization's stakeholders, Shareholders, employees, leadership, community, etc. benefit from this mindset and behavior. An organization with this type of leader attracts potential employees and has an environment where current employees want to stay, which inevitably leads to the company's growth and inevitable success. A leader who serves is by definition one who leads by example. This type of leader is the kind that followers want to follow and emulate. Leadership by example boosts the morale of the members in the organization, as well as the reputation and the image of the organization in its community and in the industry. How to develop the skills and competencies needed to lead by serving. Leaders understand the effectiveness of leading by serving and its benefits. Thus, they become interested in how they can adopt this style of leadership, but they may wonder how they can become an effective leader who serves. There are a few steps that those who aspire to become leaders who serve need to consider. First, what are the skills and competencies most common to leaders who serve? Robert Greenleaf included listening, persuasion, intuition, and communication as essential tools for leading by serving. Larry Spears suggested 10 characteristics of leading by serving, including listening, empathy, healing, awareness, and persuasion. Other experts recommended similar skills and competencies. Leaders desirous of becoming leaders who serve will need to assess their current toolkit of skills, determine which ones they like to or are best suited to acquire, and work toward competency in those areas. Leaders decide which traits they'd like to master and participate in activities to develop those traits. For instance, listening and communication tend to be traits identified by experts as foundational for leaders who serve. So leaders can expose themselves to opportunities in which they are focused to engage in listening and communicating. Some leaders, for instance, join a local chapter of Toastmasters in order to develop their communication skills. Leaders wishing to improve their listening skills can participate in interactive activities in which listening is an essential component. In reality, in working to develop particular traits such as listening and communication, leaders are likely to develop other areas of competency. For instance, leaders who are working to become better listeners cannot help but to develop greater empathy in the process. Leaders who wish to develop their weaker skills will have the opportunity to become more competent in those areas. Becoming a better, more mature leader capable of serving others is a logical outgrowth of being able to objectively take stock of one's shortcomings and make adjustments accordingly. The self-improvement process does not stop once leaders feel they have acquired the skills necessary to become leaders who serve. In their shoes, empathy in leading by serving. Leading by serving is one of the newer leadership theories. In Robert Greenleaf's The Servant is Leader in 1970, he presented the basis of what is now widely known as servant leadership. The theory was revolutionary at the time because little or no regard had been given to the position of the followers in the leader-follower relationship prior to that time. Greenleaf's emphasis on the person and the well-being of the follower was almost radical in scope and nature. One of the most important characteristics Greenleaf asserted in leading by serving is empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person and to view life from their perspective, in their shoes. Greenleaf described it as being a characteristic of a truly great leader, being able to empathize with their followers. Empathetic leaders, because they lead from a mindset of service, are able to understand and empathize with their followers in a way that leaders who do not operate from a place of service cannot fully comprehend. It is in part why Greenleaf felt that a truly great leader is first a servant and then rises to a position of leadership. Empathy is important in the leader-follower relationship. Empathy is important in building trust between leaders and followers. A follower is much more likely to build trust with a leader if the follower believes the leader understands them and relates to them. Empathy encourages open communication between leaders and followers because it is much easier to communicate with a person who understands you for who you are and what your needs may be. Also, empathy fosters a supportive environment because it makes for room for followers to know that they are unequivocally supported in the roles they serve. Greenleaf used the term empathy in tandem with acceptance because a leader who serves is empathetic and is also a leader who is unconditionally accepting of their followers. The leader will make themselves available for their followers to communicate openly and freely with them. As leaders who serve, they will be able to demonstrate empathy to their followers because they understand where they're coming from, since they themselves have been in the shoes of their followers. They, as leaders, engage in active listening and are able to move forward with actions and goals that benefit their followers. Leaders who serve are able to provide significant value to their followers and ultimately to their organizations when they demonstrate empathy to their followers. In an organization whose followers are secure in the knowledge that they are understood by their leader, and their leader is able to relate to them and empathize with them, they are much better positioned for success than organizations that lack this element. The ripple effect: how leading by serving can influence organizational culture. A leader who serves can relate to their followers, having been where they are, knowing firsthand what they are experiencing. Leaders who serve actively listen to their followers and consistently put their followers first, making their followers' needs of primary importance. A leader who serves demonstrates behavior that has a ripple effect that influences the entire organization and its culture. Organizational culture can be defined as the shared values, beliefs, and vision of an organization. Southwest Airlines' culture: service-minded, fun-loving employees. Google's culture: innovation and openness among employees. In organizations with desirable organizational cultures, the working environment is determined by the culture of the organization and how it is shaped by the leader and followers' shared beliefs and norms. In organizations with functional, positive cultures, productivity and employee satisfaction is high, and these organizations tend to be highly successful overall. Leading by serving can positively affect organizational culture. For one, leaders who serve are empathetic, which could lead to encouraging a culture of authenticity within the organization. If a leader can understand what their followers are experiencing, it makes for an environment where followers can be their true authentic selves and realize their potential in the organization. Within this atmosphere of empathy and authenticity, leading by serving can further foster a culture of growth and development because the environment provides a fertile place for growth to occur. In addition to Southwest and Google, Adobe provides another real-world example of an organization with a culture that is liked by both outsiders as well as members of the organization. Adobe has consistently demonstrated empathy towards its employees by recognizing them as their greatest asset. By serving their people and showing them appreciation, Adobe fosters an environment in which growth can occur and individuals are able to become the best possible version of themselves. Adobe's rich culture continues to create a ripple effect for its members who consistently emulate the positivity of its culture. An organization's culture reflects the service and dedication of the leader who serves the members of the organization. The leader who serves is instrumental in creating an organizational culture to the extent that it creates a positive ripple effect. Everyone in the organization benefits from the attitude of servitude demonstrated by the leader, such that it is an attitude they strive to emulate. Books to read on leading by serving. Leading by serving, formerly known as servant leadership, is one of the more recent theories found in the leadership literature. The term servant leader was coined by Robert Greenleaf, the person who is credited with the seminal work on the topic in 1970. Leading by serving occurs when leaders, who typically begin in positions of servitude, are able to rise to positions of leadership because of their dedication to the people they serve. What marks them as leaders who serve is that they never lose sight of the followers they serve. There are a number of authors who have written books on the topic. Robert Greenleaf, founder of the modern servant leadership movement and the Greenleaf Center of Servant Leadership. After a successful career in business management, he wrote the essay The Servant as Leader and established the servant leadership concept, which persists to this day. He eventually went on to publish the book Servant Leadership. Greenleaf believed that even though servant leadership was based in the Judeo-Christian belief system, the concept had applicability for all faiths and non-religious institutions. Larry Spears' insight on leadership. Larry Spears worked with Greenleaf and became the head of the Robert K. Greenleaf Center for Servant Leaders after Greenleaf's death. Spears discovered numerous unpublished works by Greenleaf, which he published under his and Greenleaf's name. Spears also published books as a solo author, the first of which was Insights on Leadership. Spears eventually left the Greenleaf Center in 2007 and founded the Spears Center for Servant Leadership in 2008. Authors Ken Blanchard and Phil Hodges co-authored Lead Like Jesus, Lessons from the Greatest Leadership Role Model of All Time. James Hunter wrote The Servant, a simple story about the true essence of leadership. Hunter's book explored the concept of leadership as a service from the narrative approach. Stephen Covey, whose well-known work, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, includes elements of leading by serving. Many more books have been written on this subject since its introduction by Greenleaf over 50 years ago. Its staying power and the numerous works on the topic speak to the fact that it is a solid contender in the arena of leadership theories. The best practices and examples of leading by serving in different industries and sectors. The individuals who lead by serving can be found in virtually every industry and sector in existence. Whether the focus is on industries, which are specific groups of similar types of companies, which are large sectors of the economy and include various industries, the leaders who serve their followers in different industries and sectors have commonalities, i.e., empathy, compassion, concern, listening, awareness, and commitment to the growth of people. Regardless of the industry or sector in which leaders who serve are found, they are dedicated to the people to whom they serve. One of the key industries or sectors in which leaders who serve can be found is healthcare, where leaders who serve are critical because of the nature of the environment. In providing care for individuals who are sick or providing preventative care before individuals become sick, leaders who serve are perhaps more aware of the needs of the people involved. Leaders who serve may be more likely to demonstrate empathy and concern for both employees and patients. They will be mindful of wise management of resources as well as improving patient outcomes. Leaders who serve are drawn to the aspects of technology that involve innovation and employee empowerment because of their potential benefits. Encouraging innovation, for example, is a behavior to be expected of leaders who serve, as it provides leaders with a way to provide support to their followers. Innovative organizations are able to visualize scenarios in which the infeasible becomes a distinct possibility. Slack demonstrates excellence in empowering its staff through seamless communications in diverse work settings. Leaders who serve in education are nurturing to those they lead, and they seek opportunities to provide their people with development opportunities. Because they recognize the value of education, leaders who serve ensure their followers have access to educational opportunities and that they can be part of an inclusive educational environment. There are, fortunately, shining examples of leaders throughout the education sector who serve in the educational realm that provide inspiration not only for their organizations but for other organizations as well. A sector encompassing numerous industries is the nonprofit sector. Nonprofit organizations with leaders who serve can be identified by the advocacy and community engagement that are present within the organizations. Nonprofit leaders are mindful of developing effective strategies to promote advocacy for the marginalized. Leaders of these organizations strive for effective community engagement, which serves all stakeholders of the organizations. The efforts of leaders who serve, who are wholly dedicated to their work with nonprofit organizations, are able to significantly impact their community. Leading by serving for women. The principles of leadership by serving are fairly universal in that they can be successfully employed by any leader regardless of whether the leader is male or female, young or old, etc. Followers tend to be less concerned about the outward characteristics of their leaders than they are about the behaviors their leaders demonstrate on their behalf. Yet women who are leaders who serve may be more inclined, even if only slightly, to demonstrate the aspect of leading by serving that entails collaborative and empathetic leadership traits. It is not a hard and fast rule, yet research exists that indicates that there is some truth to this assertion. Research suggests that women are more empathetic than men, even if only marginally. For example, a study published in Current Psychology in 2021 found that women have greater empathetic capacity even if only slightly. Another 2023 study published in Social Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience reported similar findings. CNN, citing a study published in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, reported that there are differences between women and men in that women scored higher on tests measuring empathy than men scored. Women have historically been the ones to assume roles in which empathy is needed. During the pandemic, when many employees were required to work from home, women were primarily the ones who checked in on coworkers and their overall well-being. Work activity that most companies deem critical, according to the 2021 Women in the Workplace survey. Women leaders who serve are especially more likely to demonstrate empathy toward those they lead, showing their followers care and concern, particularly during times it is most needed. Even though they are being seen to a lesser and lesser extent, there are still challenges that women leaders who serve are facing. Women leaders still fight against a measure of inequality in how they are treated as well as how they are paid. The Financial Times reported that women still earn less than men for the same work. While the gap is smaller than it was a few decades ago, the fact is that the gap still remains. Women who lead by serving are well aware of the disparities, yet they remain dedicated to their followers, going the extra mile for them whenever necessary, regardless of the disparities. Women leaders who serve benefit from mentoring relationships. Whether they have been mentored by women leaders who serve or they are mentoring women who are poised to become leaders who serve, the mentoring relationship is crucial. Women can experience empowerment through mentorship and support who have accomplished what they are striving to accomplish and who have experienced success in ways they are hoping to experience success. While challenges exist for them, the women leaders who serve are better positioned than they once were to overcome these challenges, and the challenges are decreasing. The pay gap still exists, but it is closing. More men than women serve in positions of leadership, but this gap is closing as well. News agencies share more and more stories of women who hold positions of leadership and are achieving great accomplishments for their followers and their organizations. Through these victories, all stakeholders of the organizations are beneficiaries. The role of leading by serving in social change and justice. The leadership style of leading by serving can prove a pathway for leaders and a catalyst for those desirous of social change and justice. A person who leads by serving starts in a position of service amongst those surrounding them, whether in an informal group or formal organization, and through their dedicated service to others becomes a leader, whether through formal assignment or an informal role. Because one who leads by serving remains dedicated to the growth and success of those they serve, the individuals being served become equipped to work toward social change and social justice, whether for themselves or for others. Mahatma Gandhi, through his service and dedication to the people to whom he served, worked for social change and justice. He launched nonviolent campaigns for South African civil rights and served disinherited Indian peasants, farmers, and laborers. Saint Teresa of Calcutta dedicated her life to the work, becoming the leader of a global order of nuns until her death. As Gandhi and Teresa exemplified in their lives, individuals who are wholly dedicated to the service of their followers can find themselves in positions of leadership at which they can then positively affect not only social change and justice, but inclusivity as well. Leaders who serve work for diverse voices to be heard and valued. Any goals, including social change and justice, would necessarily include inclusivity and the empowering of marginalized individuals. Leaders who serve make a point, even going out of their way if necessary, to seek out those who are often overlooked and help them to become part of a greater conversation. There are a couple of ways that leaders who serve might be able to foster environments in which their followers experience social change and justice. First, leaders can create collaborative environments centered on mutual support and shared goals. Collaboration minimizes a top down approach and encourages a bottom up approach instead. Second, leaders who serve can provide a safe space for conflict resolution. Because conflict is a natural part of relationships and healthy conflict can prompt a thriving synergistic community, leaders can ensure that there are procedures in place where participants can resolve disputes and exist harmoniously with others. In essence, leaders who serve can foster an environment where marginalized members of a community can move towards social justice and change. As members become more and more empowered, leaders can implement strategies to maintain the momentum gained in these social change efforts over the long haul. A needed part of the process is measuring the impact of efforts of the collective. Tools and methods tailored for the community can be extremely helpful in assessing the effectiveness of leading by serving in achieving social change and justice. Lead by serving. How to align your values and actions with your purpose and vision. Leading by serving turns the traditional view of leadership on its ear in that the leader is not distanced from their followers. Leaders who lead by serving create an atmosphere of mutual respect, trust, and empathy, which can lead to solid alignment of values and actions with your purpose and vision. In considering leadership by serving and its foundational values and the actions which demonstrate these values, The alignment of these values and behaviors will be considered in concert with the leader's purpose and vision. Within the framework of leading by serving is the significance of values and the role they play. Namely, the values held by the leader are the ones that are ideally formulated during the leader's time spent alongside followers, serving them and meeting their needs. This opportunity for a first-hand observation of their work environment and experience, as well as their needs, enables the leader to create an informed set of guiding values for the employees, which contributes heavily to the guiding values of the organization. After values are clearly stated, a plan of action can then be devised. With the leading by serving model, actions speak louder than words. What a leader does communicates more clearly than any spoken missive or any written policy to the followers of the leader. The leader who serves demonstrates integrity and actively engages in practicing empathy. These behaviors clearly express the leader's commitment to the organization and the people who comprise the organization. In these efforts, the leader demonstrates an alignment of values and actions with purpose and vision. The values formed and the actions demonstrated by the leader occur during the formative process of serving alongside their followers. This alignment positions leaders for sharing a common and desirable purpose and vision. If vision casting plays any part in leadership, and of course it does, then the person who leads by serving must, by necessity, be someone who puts their money where their mouth is when it comes to communicating vision and purpose to the employees or the followers. Those who lead by serving should begin by clarifying what their vision and their purposes are. Once this crucial step has been accomplished, leaders who lead by serving can then begin to give consideration to how they can align their values and action with the purpose and vision they have devised. The alignment process will take more than a few actions over the course of a few days before followers will be able to notice it, and before followers are able to know without a doubt that the leader's actions and values are genuine. Lead by serving. What inspired its conception? A number of different theories and approaches of leadership have been analyzed over the course of history. Most have focused on the person of the leader, with little regard given to those who follow the leader. With a growing need to be more holistic and take into consideration both parties who comprise the leadership relationship, the concept of leadership through serving was born. Its beginnings stem from the work of Robert Greenleaf, a leader whose seminal work, The Servant as Leader, laid the groundwork for what we know as servant leadership. Prior to authoring his landmark work, Greenleaf had been in business management research, development, and education, eventually retiring from the company as Director of Management Research. Prior to his retirement, he was also a visiting lecturer at MIT, and he provided consulting to several major universities, businesses, foundations, and churches. The fact that he consulted during the tumultuous 60s and 70s contributed to his perceived need for a different type of leadership that would be effective in guiding people through these turbulent times. Greenleaf regretted not moving sooner on his novel leadership concept. He'd been toying with the idea for over a decade before finally fleshing it out, citing the fact that he could no longer sit on the idea once he became aware of the growing crisis in leadership. He believed the prompting to create the concept of leading by serving was prophetic, and that prophetic voices needed to be heard and heeded by everyone, not just him. These prophetic voices, he believed, are always speaking and address us today with the wisdom of past great voices, giving us sage words on how to serve and lead in our current time. Some of the core components of the leading by serving concept have been mentioned, such as being willing and humble enough to serve and an ability to be prophetically discerning. Another mark of a leader who serves is to be willing to take risks. Other characteristics of leaders who serve are that they are caring, accepting, empathetic, perceptive, trustworthy, goal-oriented, good listeners, and are able to relate to their followers. No one possesses 100% of these traits, but leaders who serve can work to acquire or learn as many of these traits as possible. The creation of the leadership by serving concept has proven to be a highly relevant one, particularly for the purpose of redefining leadership for a changing world. Encouraging leaders to begin from a place of service means having leaders who are better able to lead their followers, which is crucial in being able to meet those needs. Leaders and followers both are enriched through the leadership by serving experience. Lead by serving, personal growth and mentorship. Leading by serving places major emphasis on the leader being attentive to the needs of their followers. In order to accomplish this, leaders who serve make an investment in the followers by showing empathy and actively listening. The investment of time, energy, and resources enables the leader, followers, and organization to be positioned for success and growth. Through leading by serving, leaders foster an environment which is conducive to personal growth and effective mentorship, which ultimately promotes organizational performance and individual fulfillment. Leading by serving is a catalyst for personal growth, and leaders who serve will encourage and support personal growth for followers. The type of leadership demonstrated by a leader who serves will include empathy and listening, as was mentioned previously. Leaders who serve also cultivate self awareness in their followers, as they are cognizant of how beneficial it is to their followers for them to be knowledgeable about themselves and their needs. Those who lead by serving will make adjustments in their leadership strategies to encourage self knowledge in their followers and thus allow their followers to develop their potential and further their skills and emotional intelligence. The mentorship of followers by leaders who serve can be critical to the success of the followers. Leaders who serve encourage the development of strategies such as building relationships between themselves and their followers. The support that followers receive as mentees in these mentor relationships will be key in empowering them and enabling them to not only develop their skills, but to hone their decision making ability as well. Empowered followers are well positioned to meet their own needs and accomplish their goals, which is what leaders who serve strive for their followers to be able to do. Leaders who serve can significantly impact not only the growth of individual followers, but on the growth of the organization as a whole. An organization that ceases to continually grow will not only stagnate but digress, so a continuous learning environment is therefore essential for any dynamic growing organization. Organizations that continue to grow are organizations that positively influence retention and morale within the organization. Members of a dynamic organization can experience greater satisfaction and personal fulfillment. In summary, leading by serving provides an opportunity for leaders to create relationships and environments that support mentorship and encourage growth. Individuals who are the beneficiaries of supportive mentorship relationships become empowered to chart their own courses and achieve their own goals. Dynamic growing organizations can boost morale and positively affect employee retention. Leaders who serve must foster mentoring relationships with those they lead for the benefit of both followers and leaders. The delicate balance of authority and service. Leaders who lead by serving walk a fine line between being a servant and the authority of being a leader who serves. Because leaders who serve consistently operate from a position of serving, they run the risk of not always clearly delineating their role in leadership, both for themselves and for their followers. Leaders who serve must remain mindful of the position of authority they hold amongst their followers without lording it over them. There are some issues that leaders who lead by serving should be mindful of in order to maintain the delicate yet clear balance between that of being a leader and having a heart for service. In traditional leadership roles, the position of leader is usually more clearly delineated, since the leader is not necessarily the one who has been a servant nor functions from a place of service for their followers. But the leader who leads by serving is a servant first, which can prove a somewhat difficult situation for the leader follower relationship. If a leader who leads by serving was first a servant and continues to put service first, it is easy to see why there might be difficulties in consistently being clear on the distinction of roles between leader and the follower. In leading by serving, service is of primary importance. Within the context of service versus authority, service is crucially important. In leading by serving, service has always been the leader's goal, even prior to their assuming the role of leader. From a posture of service, whether a leader is still a servant, the leader is highly regarded by their followers, and the leader provides support, empowers their followers, and even encourages their followers' development. A leader who serves is well positioned to foster an environment where there is mutual respect and collaboration. So, on a practical level, how can a leader who serves successfully walk the tightrope between authority and service? First, the leader who serves can resolve to be authoritative and remain calmly in charge of all situations, even adverse ones. The authority should not be condescending in any way, but relational, and should be demonstrated from a place of understanding and empathy. Yet, and this is the second strategy, the leader who serves should make clear that they do not see themselves as any better than anyone else in the organization. The only difference is the rank and position. In short, the leader who serves is fully able to provide effective leadership through service to their followers and can do so without compromising their authority with their followers. When leadership of this nature exists in an organization, followers can clearly see the authenticity of the leader and are apt to be respectful of the leader's authority because they know the leader cares because of the service the leader consistently provides them with. What three well known leaders who served can teach us. The concept of leading by serving was formally developed and presented by Robert Greenleaf in the early 1970s in his publication of his seminal work, The Servant as Leader. In it, Greenleaf describes his concept of servant leadership, which is largely defined by the service the leader gives to their followers and the fact that the leader never fails to keep their followers' needs of primary importance. Many leaders have embodied this concept and developed sizable followings as a result. Born into India's caste system in the 19th century, Gandhi's philosophy evolved throughout his life to embrace the attitude of servitude. Upon experiencing racism during his time practicing law, he began to shift his focus to work for the civil rights of Indian people. He didn't seek out a position of leadership. Instead, he worked on the front lines with those experiencing oppression and discrimination, eventually gaining a loyal following, which led him to becoming a leader for civil rights of Indians. Dr. King lived during the rise of the civil rights movement, of which he became a participant and not necessarily of his initial choosing. Yet once he began his work alongside of others for the rights of black Americans, his influence began to extend further and further and farther into the movement until he became a primary leader, if not the primary leader, of the civil rights movement prior to his assassination. No matter how highly he ascended, he never lost sight of the plight of lowly black Americans and never failed to labor tirelessly alongside of them. A third leader, and perhaps the ultimate leader who served, was Jesus Christ. He was born into a lowly Jewish working family during a time when Jews were under Roman rule. The biblical account of Christ indicates that he lived his entire life as not much more than a peasant, yet was and is a leader of the highest ranking. There is no higher position of the leadership than being God. However, Jesus never lost sight of the lowly, the oppressed, and the disinherited. He spent his entire earthly life serving his followers and meeting their needs, even sacrificing his own life for them. So, what do these leaders who serve tell us? Or what can we learn from their lives and the examples they set? We learn that a formal position of leadership is not required in order to have a love for the people we serve, and that those we serve know beyond any doubt that we care for them and want the best for them, and will always strive for them to realize their goals and desires and have their needs met. Our empathy for them can be clearly felt by them, and in turn, they are loyal to us and the leadership we provide, whether from a formal position of leadership or otherwise. What lesser known leaders who served can teach us? Leading by serving, more popularly known as servant leadership, has become a widely known and highly desirable model of leadership. Leaders who are characterized by serving their followers have a desire to meet the needs of their followers and always to hold their followers' needs, goals, and desires as the primary focus. While there have been a number of well known leaders who embrace servitude, some are not as well known, yet have nonetheless had a tremendous impact on our culture today. Two such leaders in particular, shared in Robert Greenleaf's The Servant as Leader, will be noted here. The first leader to be analyzed is John Woolman, the man who was behind the abolition of slavery within the Quaker order in the 18th century. He campaigned to rid the society of the heinous practice of slavery by getting people to consider how ownership of slaves affected them as moral people. Person by person, the Quakers abandoned the practice of slavery until it was completely obliterated by the society in 1770. During his life, he never held a position of authority, and today his name and work are not well known. Yet the leadership he demonstrated through service had great impact. George Wythe, mentioned by Greenleaf, was Thomas Jefferson's mentor. Because of this relationship, Jefferson was coaxed to abandon his natural disposition to be a reclusive scholar and to instead realize his potential as a leader who serves. Jefferson went on to draft the Declaration of Independence, of which Wythe was a signer, and even to become the third president of the United States. It is somewhat doubtful any of this would have happened without the influence of George Wythe and the service he devoted to Jefferson. These obscure leaders who never became leaders teach us that a leader who serves with no concern for an official position of authority can still have impact. If either of these individuals had needed to have an official leadership title in order to serve and influence their followers, they would have never acted on their beliefs and thus influenced the world around them. We may have never experienced some of the important events that we have experienced due to their dedication and their service to those who followed them and who were influenced by them. The power of leading by serving in a crisis. While good leadership is important for followers during times of smooth sailing, it becomes critically important during times of crisis. Those who find themselves in positions of leadership during a crisis draw from resources they have proactively put in place specifically for use during turbulent times. Those who lead during a crisis will communicate clearly, be flexible, and be able to remain mindful of their followers and their well-being at the same time. Those who lead by serving are ideally suited for crisis leadership. Leaders who serve may well be the ideal types of leaders for turbulent times. Leaders who serve their followers have established a relationship of mutual trust with their followers, garnering their loyalty. The leaders have credibility in the eyes of the followers, and the followers are committed to these leaders and know they can trust their leaders because their leaders are committed to them in turn. Thus, when crises come, followers know their leaders can be relied upon and will give them trustworthy, credible guidance through the difficulties. When leaders serve their followers, they support them and empower them to be self-sufficient so that their followers can be well equipped to rise to the occasion even during times of crisis. Leaders who serve are willing to do whatever is needed for the betterment of their followers, especially when challenges present themselves. However, leaders who serve realize that their followers reach a point where they ultimately fare better when they can work through the challenges for themselves. Leaders then can shift their efforts toward providing support and resources to ensure the resilience of their followers. An essential element for leading during times of crisis is clear, transparent communication. Leaders who serve must take care to engage communication that is clear, unmistakable, and effective. Leaders must also be transparent so that the followers can discern their honesty. During times of crisis, followers want to know their leaders are being honest with them so that they can trust them for sincere leadership. When leaders who serve are careful to engage in effective communication, it helps to create a cooperative environment among leaders and followers. Times of crisis, while not desirable, actually provide important opportunities for learning and adapting, and for leaders and followers to gauge how prepared they may or may not be for challenging times, present or future. Leaders who serve, as well as their followers, can make the most of crises by chalking them up to learning opportunities. Leaders can determine what ways improvements can be made and resources and support systems can be put in place. In this way, the next time leaders who serve and the followers they serve encounter a crisis, they will be better equipped to navigate it and mitigate any negative consequences. The top mistake that leaders who serve should avoid. Leading by serving, which has gained popularity in recent decades, is a relatable, down-to-earth method of leadership. Leaders who serve are devoted to their followers, and during their leadership tenure, they never lose sight of the needs of their followers. Some leaders may go as far as to do the work of their followers, or fight their battles for them. While their earnestness is to be commended, leaders who make this mistake rob their followers of their agency. Leaders who serve should therefore make sure to avoid this mistake. In order to understand the gravity of this error, it is important to understand why it is a mistake and how it impacts followers. Leaders who serve, as was mentioned previously, have a desire to see their followers achieve their goals and desires. Followers can then move from a position of need to a position of empowerment and fulfillment. However, this process is jeopardized when leaders who are so intent on serving unintentionally become leaders who enable and not leaders who empower. This is a very important distinction and a mistake leaders cannot make, at risk of creating a setback for their followers. Greenleaf underscored the importance of this issue. When describing the reforms made on behalf of a marginalized group of peasants, Greenleaf pointed out that the reforms made for the marginalized were not sufficient to bring about true change for them. Rather, when the peasants were able to act on their own behalf and work for change, is when change came and their situation improved. Greenleaf suggested that leaders who serve that they stand aside and serve when asked and as asked. A true leader who serves, Greenleaf stated, will consider this stance as the best possible course for individuals working to better their position. For starters, leaders who serve can provide support without taking over. Followers benefit from retaining their autonomy, and as such, they need fellow laborers in the fight, not leaders who unintentionally rob them of their agency. A simplified example. Toddlers don't learn to walk because the parents do it for them. Toddlers learn to walk by learning and doing the work themselves, falls and all. Parents can be ready to assist and provide support, but allow the toddlers the freedom to learn on their own. Similarly, leaders who serve should stand ready to assist, but should allow their followers to do all they can on their own. By allowing their followers agency to achieve their own goals, leaders who serve are actually serving their followers in the best way possible. Leaders can provide knowledge, resources, support, and guidance. Granted, it is contingent upon what the followers want their leaders to give them in order to retain their agency and autonomy and dignity. Empowered followers can then achieve more progress and more lasting change than if leaders, well intentioned though they may be, do the work for the followers instead. The dark side of leading by serving: how to avoid burnout. There are proven benefits for both leaders and followers in an environment of leadership through serving. It becomes easy to see, then, how leaders who serve are in danger of burnout. Working devotedly for the advancement of their followers, leaders who serve are in danger of burning out and not being any good to their followers or themselves. Leaders who serve must be self aware of their limitations and approach their leadership with balance. In order for leaders who serve to avoid burnout, they must become familiar with recognizing the signs of burnout. Some of the most common symptoms of burnout are fatigue, difficulty sleeping or concentrating, loss of interest or pleasure, recurring headaches, gastrointestinal problems, recurring illness, weak immune system, depression, and even thoughts of suicide. Not everyone experiencing burnout will have all of these symptoms. Some experiencing burnout may not have any of them. But leaders who serve must learn to recognize the signs of burnout when they experience them so that they can make adjustments accordingly. One strategy leaders who serve can adopt is to practice better self care. So, for example, this could mean getting plenty of exercise, engaging in healthy sleep habits, or eating a healthy diet. Perhaps a vacation may help, or if a vacation is not possible, spending days or weeks away from leading and serving their followers is a viable option. On a more regular basis, leaders who serve must be intentional about taking regular breaks. This could be something as simple as not taking calls or answering emails and texts after a certain hour every evening. Many of the strategies identified as helpful in treating burnout are the same as those that can be employed in order to avoid it. Leaders who serve can exercise, get good sleep, and eat well. They can maintain a schedule into which they regularly schedule daily downtime, and they can plan vacations and even time away from their leadership roles. Acquiring a hobby or recreational activity can also help. Asking for help is critical. Leaders who serve come to recognize their limitations and can thus create a plan to distribute responsibility when they are aware it will be overwhelming for them to handle without assistance. Leaders who serve have a heart for the people they serve and often go above and beyond what could be deemed reasonable in order to serve their followers. However, leaders who serve must be aware of their own limitations and recognize when they are approaching becoming overcommitted and overwhelmed. Before they reach this point, the point at which burnout occurs, they can proactively make adjustments and reach out for help through the support systems they have already implemented. Burnout is very real, but avoiding it is possible.